And welcome back in another edition Stripe Show podcast, folks. I promise I'll be back in Florida next week. Bear with me. I'm still on vacation, and I'm working still. I'm still working on vacation up here in northern Idaho at a place called Hayden Lake. And there's a guy here that's sitting next to me that he knows a thing or two about Hayden Lake as well, because he used to be up here as one of the top reps for Henry Griffith's golf. And he comes to me here from California on a Thursday. Mike Schy. Mike, I'm up in Hayden. You know everything about this place, don't you?
I don't know about everything, but it's a great country, that's for sure. It's a great place to go vacation.
I've been camping on the lake for 2 weeks. Going to be heading back this week to Florida. 90-degree weather, humidity. I want to stay one more week. I'm enjoying this dry heat. But I appreciate you joining me here from California. And a lot to talk about, of course, coming off the Open Championship. And as people know, Mike, you've been a longtime coach and friend and close friend, family, really, as you mentioned to me as before we got going, with one of the top players in the world, Bryson DeChambeau. So I got to start, Mike. What was your first thought when Bryson made that comment about the Cobra driver? What in the world?
I think, again, bad comment, super bad comment, number one. I mean, you just don't ever make statements like that. You can certainly say, hey, man, I'm driving the ball horribly and I'm trying to figure out my driver. But, saying that was tough. And, yeah, again, there's no excuse for it. I know he's still grappling with it as we probably speak at this moment. And so, hopefully the relationships can still be intact this week. And so, because Cobra has been busting their chops. I mean, they've been really, really working very, very hard to try to figure out, the driver at those swing speeds. Again, and I think Tom, I can't pronounce his last name. Anyway, call him T.O., best engineer on the planet at Cobra. Again, drivers are typically made for the normal golf, whether it's professional, amateur, whatever, at that 125 zone as far as clubhead speed. Once you start reaching that 130, 135, and that the collision with the ball and the driver, man, there's some issues there big time. And that's why, long drive guys struggle with their drivers, because they explode all the time. Yeah. So it's a very difficult process. And I hats off to Cobra for what they're trying to do. But again, that was a tough comment that was made. But again, Bryson played bad, and sometimes when a elite athlete plays bad, they say things that they sometimes regret.
Yeah, you've known Bryson, since 11, 12. I mean, you were right there coaching him. You've caddied for him. National championship at SMU. He was the top player. Then he wins the U.S. Amateur. He's won multiple times on the PGA Tour. Of course, he wins the U.S. Open. You've seen Bryson, the young Bryson, now into where we are, as you said, grappling here this week on, really what transpired there. But a lot has happened, right, to Bryson over, the last few weeks. I don't want to get into the whole Brooks Koepka episode. That's a whole different topic. But just Bryson's game and a lot of the things that are happening. Tim Tucker, of course, leaves. You've been right there with him in the core. The question that I get a lot is, how tough is it, do you think, for these guys in the middle working with Bryson and trying to get him to play at his best level? No better player, no better person to answer that than you, and how tough it is to work with the mind in a guy like Bryson DeChambeau.
It's a great question and probably a long answer. It's very difficult. First of all, again, he is a perfectionist. I always joke around, right? Everybody said he's this super perfectionist, and but if you ever go into his room, you probably wouldn't think he's a perfectionist. So, but on the golf course, when it comes to golf and all that, I mean, his brain, it's going a lot of different directions at any given time. And again, it's very, this is the best way to explain Bryson. When he doesn't understand something, he is the worst person on the planet to be around, from my perspective. Very, very difficult. So, because he he's trying to figure out something, can't figure it out, and he'll take everybody down with him trying to figure that out. And so whether it's him on his own journey, wanting information from you or just feedback from you, you've got to be there and be ready to give, let's say, whether it's a right answer or a response that he's looking for in his way. So if, a lot of times he would look at me and go, tell me what to do and fix it. And I literally would tell him, no, you're going to dig it out of the dirt and fix it yourself. And then, there'll be a few choice adjectives in that process as well. But literally 30 minutes later, he'll be telling everybody, see, this is how we work. This is why we work so great together. And again, I've always pushed him in that direction, is that, come on, dig it out of the dirt. Please try to not be personal when you're saying all the things you're saying, whether it's to your caddy or to your manager or to your, your coach or friend or whatever. But, sometimes that's not possible.
So when he doesn't understand it, when the equation is not clear, let's just say, like that's when the frustration perhaps kicks in, and then he starts to, throw the things around, and perhaps we saw there with the Cobra situation, clearly frustrated.
Right. Right. And it's been that, I mean, we all saw Carnoustie, that was like 9:30 at night. He was hitting, for him, duck hooks, of course, but, for a normal person, they were probably nice soft draws. But again, he was super frustrated and wasn't letting it go and couldn't shut it down. And a lot of words were said that night as well. And that was all recorded, from at least video standpoint. Not, thank God the audio wasn't on. But, again, and at the U.S. Open and so on. So, yeah, it's difficult. It's hard. And guys like Tim, his caddy was amazing and a very, very good friend. I brought him on board the first time. When he came back the second time, that was a little bit iffy. He really didn't want the job, but, fortunately it paid off big time for him. But, again, the reason I wanted somebody like Tim on board is that he's like me in a way. I think a lot thicker skin than me, but he bought into all our ideas and concepts and the science or, the processes that Bryson goes through and was a major force there to Bryson's success. And so, but there's a lot of 10-hour days that are brutal on a guy like Tim who's got no meniscus in either knee. You watch him ice down and so on. And look, Bryson's not the only guy that throws darts at his caddies and people around him. That it happens a lot with a lot of different players. But as a caddy, you got to be able to take it and get up in the morning and get your job done.
How much of this do you feel like, from your perspective, Mike, needs to be tempered for him, say, long term? Because clearly now some things have happened. Is it time to take a step back and be like, hey, we've got to manage this a little bit differently to maintain some of the key core members? Because let's face it, you can have tough skin, but eventually it's going to wear on you, and perhaps these outbursts become more intense and more personal, right? So is it time to take a step back and say, we got to really think about what's going on here a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I would, again, as a friend, as a how I believe that we should treat people and treat those around us and the people that support us. Yeah, I mean, I look at the fact that I would love to see it different. I would love to see his responses different, and when he's frustrated and all that. Ultimately, again, it's his decision whether he wants that. It's his decision whether he wants to be liked or not liked, and so on. He's certainly probably the most talked about guy on the planet for the most part in golf, good or bad. That's what's happening. Certainly when he's, I see him a lot of times at his best when he's around kids and comes back to my place and he's hanging out and he's, having fun and he's teaching and coaching, and you see this whole different side, which you would love to see more of, because nobody ever sees that side of him. They see, obviously, we see the bad side. So I know that it's there. And I would, again, like I said, I'd love to see it change. But again, ultimately, you or I or anybody else can't change that. It has to be as we know, it's from within, and just take a look at that. How am I treating people? How am I responding? And is there a better way? And so, but ultimately, that's his call for sure.
How has your role changed, Mike? You, of course, were with him, as I mentioned, when he was very young, through his college days where he was terrific at SMU, U.S. amateur. I mean, the guy was an incredible amateur golfer.
Right. Honestly, again, I in my view, best ball striker I've ever seen.
Okay.
And I mean, you just can't. I had guys at Flight Scope would do measurements and go, this kid can hit a 3-iron and have a dispersion pattern of 10 feet in a circle. It's like things they've never seen before. Mm-hmm. And so, that part, I miss that aspect. I get that's one of my frustrations where the game is kind of gone. It's kind of forced Bryson into, the long drive mode a little bit. I'm old school. I'm 60. I'm old. I'm a fairways and greens guy. And I'm telling you right now, I won't change that. I look at approach, strokes gain, and to me that's one of the most important numbers. Granted, if you hit it a little bit longer, that obviously helps, but most people will never get there. So from my perspective, though, and my relationship, it's always been first and foremost his friend. It's always been try to be family member. He used to spend 30 hours a week with me. And so that relationship will never change. I'm not, quote, his only coach. I'm certainly available for any conversation. We do talk about equipment. Obviously, on one length, I have my views on how one length should be done and how it should be made and that kind of stuff. I feel like I'm a little bit ahead of most people on that one.
Yeah.
And so Bryson and I talk about that a little bit, but right now it's more about the driver and hitting it far, far, far.
Yeah.
And so, once he's down a rabbit hole, sometimes it takes a while to kind of crawl.
When did that start, Mike? When did this? Obviously, we know with COVID, like that's when he announced it. But I would imagine the conversation started like where did that come from, and when did that start? Like, let's hit it as far as we can.
Well, I mean, I tell you the truth, as soon as he got on tour. So I would almost tell you day one when he became a golf professional. It was like, I got to hit it farther. And so, not that I ever felt he was short by any means, but that he got consumed with that pretty fast. Well, once his his fairways hit went down to like 35-40% and not making cuts, we had to deal with that. And so we had to get back to that 60 or 60+% rate so he could actually make cuts, make money, and stay on tour. And again, putting was something that we were wrestling with as well. And so we had to go through that journey first and foremost. And so, which, we did with obviously went to the face on putter. And unfortunately, the USGA was a little bit didn't want that one to be in play, and so I'm going to blame that one on the USGA at this point. Anyway, and then ended up with the arm lock sick and the sick guys, and that was awesome journey. And Steven is the head of SICK, who's an amazing putting instructor, helped Bryson tremendously how to become one of the best putters in the world. And so I'll be honest too, as far as the long drive part, if Bryson is not the putter he is today, he would have stopped this a long time ago. And so his putting, when you look at last week, I'm telling you right now, no way he makes the cut if he's not putting good. And he putted good, So about 3 years ago, though, before COVID, I want to say it was right before Las Vegas, he had a conversation with his trainer, Greg Roscoff, and he saw some things there that he can improve and he can get stronger. And I think in that combination of being stronger, I should be able to hit it a lot farther. And so that became, I remember 190 was kind of like his goal in the beginning. Of course, now it's like he's told me, I don't know where the end is. So that's an interesting one too. So I think COVID helped that. He was locked down, had all that time. It's like, all right, now I'm just going to spend all my time. And then again, he was fortunate. Chris Como inside the living room lab had a place to go hang out and, beat balls and have cheerleaders next to him saying, swing harder. So there you go.
Rapsodo mobile launch monitor. Improve your golf swing today. Pro level launch data in the palm of your hand. It is very accurate, within 2% of a $20,000 unit. The Rapsodo MLM app automatically tracks stats and stores video with shot tracer, helpful for club gapping and understanding true distances for each club. Rapsodo MLM provides immediate feedback, data, and creates a better practice environment, not mindlessly hitting balls. Extremely portable. Case is about the size of a rangefinder. And you know what? You can use it both indoors and outdoors. I love this launch monitor. It's the Rapsodo mobile launch monitor. Check it out at rapsodo.com, rapsodo.com, rapsodo.com.
Are there too many cheerleaders, do you feel like, at this point for him? I mean, as his friend, would you look at him and say, look, we probably need maybe less cheerleaders and more serious conversation about you as a person dealing with adverse situations? And then not only that, but maybe what I would ask you is, on the course, has the distance, maybe obsession, gone too far where now some of his approach game and his touch around the greens have struggled?
Well, you know, I was in Dallas, again, it all blends in, and he asked me what I thought about it. And I said, hey, I think it's going to be great. I think you're going to hit more fairways because you're going to hit your 5-wood off the tee more often. You're going to hit irons off the tee more often because you're going to be able to hit it as far, if not farther, than some guys' drivers. Mm-hmm. But, you know, unfortunately, he keeps trying to bang driver in places potentially where, hey, how about the 3-wood or 5-wood instead? Yeah. I think the other thing that I told him at that point as well is I said, you know, I perceive of your total strokes gain numbers, not increasing, but going down, because now you're going to be hitting the ball into an area that you're actually very weak in. And so I'm a big, I'm all about scoring clubs. So that is an 8-iron down. And so my view is that, and again, and the reason why I say scoring clubs is because they have a proximity requirement. That's why the scoring clubs are the hardest golf clubs in golf to hit, period. End of story. 3-iron isn't hard to hit. An 8-iron or a wedge is difficult to hit into a pin placement that has a very firm area around the pin. It's by an exit point. It's got a crosswind. The grain is wherever. I mean, there's so many factors that you have to compute or be aware of or, you know, use to make sure you can actually have a chance of hitting a ball inside 15 feet. It's not easy. And so, and seeing that every week, seeing his approach numbers being on the minus, because he's got basically all he hits is 8-iron now.
Right.
And so, yeah, I would say that's where he's got to be. And I've asked him, I've asked him a number of times, you know, when are you going to do it? He goes, I'm just not ready. And I said, okay. I mean, again, it's his choice. Me as a coach or Como as a coach or whoever, it doesn't work like it does in a normal sport, as you know.
Yeah.
I'm not the boss, right? But if I'm the coach of the baseball team, who's the boss? Me, right? You do what I tell you to do, or it's a highway, right?
No.
Well, somewhat in professional sports. But the reality is, and as a tour player, that doesn't exist. And so the tour player is the boss. He's the CEO of his multi-million-dollar corporation. A lot of these guys have never had a job, never been fired. Right?
Yeah.
Never had to negotiate their own contract to be able to teach at a facility, right? You know, all that kind of stuff. And so now all of a sudden they have employees. You know, they you know, again, they're managing their corporation and they're the boss of their performance. And I'm telling you, I've had some amazing conversations with some coaches regarding that out on tour. It was very, very interesting. Number one, Colin Swatton, Jason Day's coach, who became a very good friend of mine.
Yeah,
and that's the truth of the matter is that I'm not. I could say I'm your helpmate. That's it. I'm not your coach. Chris Como's not his coach or teacher, right? Bryson's the boss. That's it. All we are is guys that give him feedback.
You know, it's interesting. I was talking with Dr. Brett McKay on the podcast. And I said to him, you know, these teams that these players put around them, the teams seem to be getting bigger, more coaches. more of this, more of that. I said, are we going too far? Where's this going? He says, I think it's just going to get bigger. I think these teams are going to continue to get bigger, and there's going to be more specialists. And man, I sat there and I thought to myself, man, that's just so much more to have to manage and think about. And of course, Bryson's such a deep thinker. And as I listen to you talk, you're on the team. You've been with him probably the longest. Of course, Chris comes on. He's on the team. The caddy's on the team. The trainer, Greg's on the team. And there's a lot of people that are, when asked, as I'm hearing it right from you, I assume, then you have to tell them what you think, right? And
Sure.
and here's what I would do. But it is up to the player to make the decision. It's just fascinating to me because, like, I look at his approach, like from, like you said, the scoring clubs, like from 50 to 75, from 75 to 100, and 50 to 125, like all the finesse stuff. He's near the bottom. He's near the bottom.
Yep.
And it's like that's the shot that he's going to be hitting the most when he's busting it down there, and he's just not taking advantage. Now, in all due respect, we got to go back to he won the U.S. Open. He won Arnold Palmer. Like, he played the Players Championship extremely well. But as of late, it just feels like, man, which way? Like, when is he going to take a step back and be like, I gotta dial it in with my wedges and my 9s and my 8s, because if I don't, then isn't it just kind of a moot point hitting it that far if you can't take advantage of it?
You're 100% right. Absolutely 100% right. So you look at, your stroke gain numbers, right? And you look at the low hanging fruit. Well, the Bryson, the low hanging fruit was, well, what if I hit it 50 yards farther, or 60 or 100 yards farther, for that matter, right? So the impression was that that's the low hanging fruit. That's what's going to help me win, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and there is some skews on the strokes gain number when Bryson has, let's say, in the fairway, has on a 500-yard par 4, has a 130-yard shot in and hits it 20 feet. And then the guy has a 170-yard shot and hits it 25 feet. You know what I mean? There's a skew there. He's going to get a minus. The other guy's going to get a plus because of the distance. So there's some little bit of skewing there per se.
Yeah.
But, again, I agree with you 100%. Ultimately, whose decision is it? It's the player.
Yeah.
And if you don't see it, my view is that when you don't practice it, it doesn't get better. And so at the U.S. Open, I thought it was quite entertaining somewhat that Dustin Johnson was right next to Bryson working on his wedging for about 2 hours, and Bryson banging drivers, for 2 hours. So, and again, he's at a point in his career, can obviously do it and doesn't affect him too much, financially or whatever. I think he's a smart guy, but sometimes maybe not, depending on what he's doing. But it's his road, and he's going down it.
Yeah, it just feels like, and I'm on the outside looking in, and Bryson's so polarizing, and it's like what he did when he came out, and his distance and just overpowering wing foot and having that come together, and now all of the, and this is golf, right? Professional golf.
Sure.
You're out there long enough, you have these ups and downs, and you have to kind of learn, okay, where are things breaking down? I got to get back on track and go this way. And it just feels like something as simple as wedges and 9s and 8s and touch is just practice, but yet he's electing to continue to pound his driver and maybe just feed his ego a little bit with all these people around him saying, wow, look how far you're hitting it.
Right. I think potentially it's there. The problem, the way he is, it's not that. What happens is he's trying to hit it to where it gets bad. And so I know that's a weird thing. However, it's almost like he keeps hitting because he knows failure is coming. And then when it fails, it's like, okay, the decision then is, do I keep trying to do it if it was just one failure, or do I have to go back a few links and start over? And so that's kind of how his mind thinks. Now, if that's why you'll see him practice sometimes till late into the evening. And so, again, it's just, it's how he's wired. And so in the back of his mind, there's times where he'll come out and go, I got it. The driver's good. Everything's perfect. and then 5 swings later it failed for whatever reason. Maybe he just wasn't, even though he wasn't paying attention or whatever. But now it's failed and it's in his brain.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, now it could go a lot of different directions at that point. New driver, new shaft. Do I need to change the position, the orientation of the driver? What the heck happened? And that spiral is kind of how he goes at things.
Right. So let's talk about the wedges for a second. Clearly he's managed his wedge play very well before and through practice. Is it just practice, or is it would you consider maybe doing the shorter wedges perhaps from the
it has nothing to do with shorter. I mean, we've gone down that road. We've shortened wedges. Hey, grip down on it that far. Does that matter?
Mm-hmm.
And so just like anything for me, and I could give Bryson a ladies, let's say a super soft flex, and 36 inches, whatever, and give him enough time to practice it, he'll make it work. And that's what I've always said to him. I said, it's just practice and work. And so, but the one thing that he has always hated working on wedging. I mean, it's just something that he's just can't.
You don't like it.
So I used to get a mitt, and I used to say, all right, come on. It turned into, okay, I'm going to try to hit one at Mike and hurt him if he's not paying attention, right? And so I'm not the best fielder either. So there you go. So, but it was how, and then I had his original caddies do that with him. Hey, just go out on the range and have him hit wedges to you so he can still, be engaged there. And so, I miss those days because I think that's really what he needs, is that, dude, can you hit it? I know you can hit an 8-iron 220. Who cares? But can you hit an 8-iron from 170 inside 15 feet at all?
Yeah.
And so, or can you hit a wedge from 100 yards consistently inside, let's say, landing zones? Can you actually land it where you want it? And so I do think there's some equipment issues there still. Because that he's gained strength, his acceleration rates have changed. So there are some issues with equipment that my personal view, I think need to be changed or at least evaluated.
Yeah.
But Bryson's very difficult in evaluating equipment because it's always on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of a tournament instead of, okay, we got 3 weeks off. Let's kind of look at some stuff. Let's go out and play it. Let's see what changes need to be done. Man, you put the gun to the equipment guys when you're trying to change things on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah, because they have other players too, right?
Oh,
They have a lot of responsibility going on.
Tons of responsibility. It's unbelievable the pressure that those guys are on, and to try to fix it or change it or test it on a Tuesday or Monday afternoon.
It seems like like the fixes and the improvements and the plan are really kind of pretty straightforward, right? They're kind of simple A and B, let's just say. Is he willing to accept that it can be simpler? It doesn't have to be so complex, and that let's just kind of get A and B better and work on it and just practice, maybe a minor tweak to the equipment here, but let's just simplify it, A and B, work on wedges, touch, off we go.
Good luck trying to say that to him. Right? You better have a shield because a golf club is. I'm telling you right now, you better have a shield because the golf club's coming right by your head. Right?
Will that ever change, Mike? Do you think for him? Is that how he's always going to be?
I don't ever want to say never. I don't see that. I always said that he was a physics major in college, right? Mm-hmm. And so everything during the day was about golf. He had his 4 hours or 3.5 hours of class time. Physics, obviously a very difficult major. And, then he would go home and he would study from, 7 o'clock till midnight, like 5 days a week. And it was very brutal. He'd call me from the library. What are you doing? I'm studying. What, dude, it's 12 o'clock. What are you still doing there? And so very, very difficult. But my fear was when he turned pro is like, what's he going to fill that void with? And of course it filled it with golf. And so, I always told him, man, get a pilot's license or something, learn how to fly, musical interest. You got to take away Fortnite. Okay, that became part of it, but you got to fill your brain with some other things other than golf 24/7.
Yeah, it's there's got to be a little balance, right? Doesn't there? There's got to be a little bit of balance and perspective,
Right?
That can go a long ways. It's fascinating. It really is.
Right. I wish I could say that. Yeah, I mean, we all agree. We all have people around us, and sometimes, if we're wise people, we actually listen to what people might say that have a opinion about something I've done or not doing or whatever. And if I'm a smart person, I'm going to listen, and either then I could respond or not respond. And so it's same thing for Bryson. It's the same deal. It's either do you respond or not respond. And I think it's difficult. Again, no excuses for him. I don't ever feel sorry for him. He's got a lot of money in the bank, and he's done very, very well. And so, but also that's also part of it, I think, as well. You go from this kid who didn't really have much, and to all of a sudden where he is now as a quote, superstar, lots of money, building a big house, all that. It's easy to get wrapped up into that, and that I've always told him, dude, I forgot way more than you know, and he's a smart guy. But I can honestly tell you, you can't replace my 60 years of life. And he's only 27 or going to be 28 in September, and that's just the way it is.
I get the feeling, Mike, you've had the tough conversation with him multiple times.
You can't, so many times. Yeah, many times. And all the way from when he was young. I mean, I used to give him a ride home, and we talked in the car about life, and certainly when I caddied for him, we try to, have conversations, whether it was before or after or during and whatever. And certainly being on the road with him 24/7, missing, again, don't feel sorry for him, but he missed 24 cuts in 2 years.
Wow.
So 22, whatever it was. It was 14 cuts, I think, in a row. And so, and he missed 8 cuts his first year. And so, that was brutally difficult on everybody, and especially him. I mean, come on. I mean, he's the one making the decisions, and missing a cut by one. I mean, it was, trust me, getting in a car with him on Friday afternoon was not an easy thing. Especially after that's cut number 6, and now we got to decide, are we going to go play in another tournament, which is what was happening as well. We were literally getting in the car or getting on a plane. Let's go play another tournament. We'd have to regroup mentally, and that was not. I'm telling you, that's why I got gray hairs, and so because I was the guy for that, and I had to be the sounding board. I had to be the guy that, if you were gonna lash out, I wanted it to be me. That's all. So
do you think
he did it quite well?
Yeah. Do you think Bryson wants to be the villain, or do you think he wants to be liked?
I don't think I think everybody kind of wants to be liked. I just don't think he thinks about it. I think he feels like, hey, I got people around me that like me or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think he thinks that way. Relationships have always been something that's difficult for him, and because he puts so much energy in what he wants to accomplish, and so I think that's a difficult part. And again, going back to the team being big or small, I would probably say, what's interesting, if you think about the British Open, he only had his manager, his caddy, and him. It was just 3 of them. And so that's kind of something, a little bit different. So, he looks at Tiger as the model, and Tiger has Rob and Joe and Tiger, and that's pretty much who they travel with. Just the 3 of them, and so I think he looks at that as well, and he tries to just basically have a couple of guys with him now. It's not like it used to be where all of us were out there, and so it's different, no doubt.
Let me ask you. I said I wasn't going to bring it up, but I got to ask. I mean, how does he view this whole thing with Brooks? I mean, to me, from my perspective, it's like Bryson's trying to have fun with it and downplay it some. Where Brooks is he's made it, I mean, at least in my view, he's trying to bully. It's like he's taken it and made it very personal and won't let it go. I mean, from your perspective, how's Bryson viewing this whole beef with Brooks?
As of, let's say, this last week or the week before, I think they thought maybe they'll do something on the side and play a little, match and, parlay it. Obviously, it would be a marketer's dream. I think Bryson was going down that road for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, does he care whether Brooks, likes him, what he says about him? I don't think he does anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's tit for tat, that's for sure. Brooks is on a roll, but Bryson said something he shouldn't have said regarding the driver last week, and that was open market, So good for Brooks taking advantage, I guess. So, but I think, I don't think he really, he never conveys it to me that God, I hate that guy's guts or whatever. That doesn't ever come out.
Yeah.
Certainly respects his game. I think that's for sure. There's no doubt about that. But it's like, well, I initiated it with the original caddy thing. When Brooks had made some comment about his play or something, Bryson went to his caddy and then told the caddy, hey, if Brooks has a problem, have him come to me. And then, of course, Brooks did. So, that's kind of where it all kind of started and more or less. And it's an interesting journey. That's for sure with those guys.
Have you talked to Bryson since the Open?
No, I haven't. Just Wednesday. Talked to him Wednesday about what he was doing and regarding the golf swing, and felt like he was onto something.
So we'll finish with this. So you're going to talk to him, I'm sure, at some point here this week. What's your? Is it going to be the stern like dad talk, or is it going to be what's the message?
I don't do that. I don't even do that necessarily with my own kids. But I think again, I try. I guess in the conversation of how you respond to, we all do stupid things, that's for sure. We say things we regret, whatever. And so I guess it's how he responds to that. And that to me is the most important part. I mean, there's a lot going on today and there's a lot going on tomorrow. I'm probably going to wait till the end of the week to try to figure out, okay, now where are we? But, I think, again, my deal is I'm going to try to love him the best way I can and be there if he wants to talk about anything. If he wants my opinion, he'll get it. But if he doesn't want it, there's no point in me saying it.
Well, Mike, I can't thank you enough. And, we haven't spent a lot of time together, but just listen to you talk. I think Bryson's pretty fortunate to have you in his corner there, and still in his corner after it sounds like a few 5-irons maybe being flung at you from time to time.
You bet. No doubt about it.
But thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate your time and coming on the Stripe Show podcast and chatting with us.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. Happy to do it. Still honored to be on it.
Thanks, buddy.
Take care.
I just want to interrupt this interview real quick and give a shout out to my friends over at Encore Golf. Encore provides some of the most cutting-edge technology in a golf ball that I have ever seen. Their team in Buffalo, New York is changing the script of golf technology through their perimeter-weighted designs, which offer players enhanced accuracy and control for every shot on the course. With their award-winning Elixir and Avant 55 golf balls, they are transforming the game for players of all skill levels. Visit encoregolf.com/Travis Fulton for more details about their products that are revolutionizing the game. Now back to the Stripe Show.